lovely humans. So if you've been following along with the Victober happenings, you know that one of the challenges is to read a book by candlelight, and I was really looking forward to doing that. Although I hadn't really picked a day or a time or anything, I figured I would have some kind of like formal decision and have this whole thing planned out. And then the other night I had a candle burning and my apartment was pretty dim, and I was like, you know, I bet if I turned the lights out I could just do this right now. So I did, and I filmed it and ended up with a very rambly video that's kind of stream of consciousness, talking about my thoughts about the experience and also a little bit about various lighting in Victorian fiction, and also just generally historically what different kinds of lighting people were using in those days. And you know, it's not the kind of video that I would have filmed had I planned it, but I kind of like it. So that's what this is. The book that I'm reading is At the Back of the North Wind by George MacDonald, which I am quite enjoying, although I'm reading much slower than I thought. This October has not gone the way that I was expecting it to, and I'm kind of rolling with it a little bit. I'll have more about all of that when I do my Victober wrap up in a couple of weeks. But until then, enjoy this I don't know what this is, but enjoy. I am doing the read by candlelight portion of Victober because I had a candle and I turned the lights out and I was like, well, guess we're doing it right now. So yay planning and weird shadows. I also am cheating. I will say that I could not sit here and read in this light, even though it looks brighter because of the reflection of the light off the wall than it actually is. I could not read without the candle. So here's my little fancy setup. Ta-da! It's very Victorian, what with the scented soy wax candle and the Kindle. But I'm reading At the Back of the North Wind and enjoying it quite a lot, and the candle makes it kind of atmospheric and lovely. Okay, sorry for the very like spooky candlelight view. I don't know how I feel about this. Anyway, I decided I wanted to see how it would be to read without the support of the kind of background light. And surprisingly, it's not as different as I thought it would be. Really, the page, the Kindle page, is quite readable. I have the candle like very close to the page and it's illuminating it quite well. I can't imagine like having it even further away than the like inch that it is. And I don't even know if reading an actual book would be easier or harder, but the propped up Kindle and the candle work quite well together. It's kind of peaceful to just sit here with this flickering light. That is something about it. The candle flickers. I think that's a function mostly of this candle and not of all candles. And it makes the light a little wavery, so it's a little weird. It's like if you've ever read in the car or the train when there's trees passing by and there's the shadows. But it's not as consistent even as that. It's an interesting experiment. I'm glad that we were invited to do this. Am I going to read by candlelight a lot? Probably not. If the power ever went out again, I might try it. Actually, in June, the power did go out. I don't know why I didn't light a candle and try to read by candlelight, because that absolutely would have been a thing that I could do, but I didn't. I think I didn't have a candle this big. This candle is actually throwing off quite a lot of light, and I only, in the summer, because it was summertime, and I don't burn candles a lot in the summer, so I think I only had some very small candles, and I kind of used them to get around, but they weren't bright enough to read by, so that definitely makes a difference. I know that in the Victorian period, one often would not be reading by candlelight. One would be using a lamp that was fueled in the earlier part of the century with whale oil, and then in the later part of the century with what we in America call kerosene, and I think what is called paraffin in England. And those would be, I don't know how much brighter, but they would be a good bit brighter than like a taper candle. So the candle, like when we think of reading by candlelight, it usually was actually lamplight, and you know, if they were using candles, they were really pure, clean candles, and they did actually give off quite a good bit of light. I mean, not so much that if you sat around and read in the dark or tried to do like really fine needlework in this kind of light, it would still hurt your eyes because it's not that bright and it's a strain. This is not something that I would do every day. Actually, it's a pretty bright. This is a pretty bright candle. I know oftentimes when I think of reading by candlelight, I'm thinking of a single kind of modern taper candle which doesn't throw a lot of light out, or I'm thinking of a small candle like a votive or something, which again doesn't throw out a lot of light. But when you have a bigger candle, they can be pretty bright. So I'm thinking of the scene in Cranford by Elizabeth Gaskell where the narrator talks about, I think her name is Mary, talks about her aunts and how they have 2 candles, but they only light one of them because they are thrifty and they don't want to waste. And they feel like having 2 candles is just too much in the evenings. But they burn them on alternate days so that when they have guests in the evenings, they can pull them both out and it looks like they're burning 2 candles. Which is just kind of hilarious. But the idea that like 1 candle is enough for the kind of work that they were doing, I mean, it's a sacrifice, but it's still not, you know. And also something that I forget is that while people who lived in the country and farmed would, you know, sort of sun up to sundown because of the farm life kind of demanded that really agrarian rhythm, people in the cities and towns didn't have that rhythm. So if you pay attention when you're reading Victorian novels, you'll notice that oftentimes people are up quite late. You know, they're eating dinner at 8 o'clock. Even the like middle class people, not just the wealthy people who are doing like the parties and balls and everything. So like in Cranford, the women, even in the summer, are up until 10 or 11 p.m. And in England, in the summer, it's dark by then, even in the summer. Obviously, in the winter, they have a much longer period of darkness. So people kind of had figured out how to do life by candlelight, and I find that really fascinating. It would be fun to find some candles or some kind of candle recipe or instructions for candle making that you could reproduce and see like how long did they burn, how bright were they really. I know that you can still find old oil lamps around and they're pretty easy to you can buy kerosene and a cotton wick and light them, and I think those give off a pretty decent amount of light and were pretty common, I think, by the like middle part of the century, although obviously people were still using candles quite a lot. Or maybe I'm thinking of America. I know in America that they were being used quite frequently. I actually don't know as much about England. America had, out of Nantucket and Massachusetts, had a really strong whaling industry that supplied oil for the lamps and pretty cheaply, so it was pretty affordable for people to just have lamps. Gosh, my forehead is really shiny. The lamplight is flattering, or candlelight is flattering, except if you're shiny, apparently. And then when kerosene oil was discovered, there was like a big deposit in Pennsylvania, for example, and one of the reasons it replaced whale oil is because it was just so cheap. And I don't know if something equivalent was happening in England, or if they had to import kerosene, for example, from the United States, which would have been expensive, or more expensive than it would have been for the Americans. So it's possible that in England they used candles longer and more consistently. I have to admit, it's not something I have paid a lot of attention to, the different references of candles versus lamps in Victorian fiction. If you are an academic and interested in Victorian fiction, if somebody hasn't written about that, that would be a good conference paper or like journal paper or something to think about, like light sources in Victorian fiction. So have at it. I'd be interested to read it. Let me know if you write that paper. So if you did not leave and stay till the very end, congratulations, you're amazing. Thank you for putting up with my rambling. If you know something about Victorian lamps, I would love to hear it. My Google searches have all just turned up like antiques, and I don't really care about buying a lamp. I just want to know how frequently they were used. And yeah, so Thank you for watching. I will see you in my next video.